The rules are simple.
Every week, we watch a new movie.
Then, we discuss it.
Welcome to Weekly Cinema.
Hello, and welcome back to Weekly Cinema. I'm your host, McKenna Coleman, here with my lovely co-host,
Gabe Lake.
Today, we will be talking about The Breakfast Club, which was a movie directed by John Hughes, released on February 15th of 1985.
That's right. The last episode went really well. We started off the show with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, discussing that movie a little bit. And we decided the next one was going to be The Breakfast Club. So within the time of that last episode and this one, we both have seen it for the first time, and we'll be diving into it this episode. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss it. This show is produced by Avon Lake Productions and is a division of Anchor News. Now, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Avon Lake Productions on YouTube, and follow the show on Spotify so you never miss an episode. Also, be sure to rate us. You can rate the show on the app by just pressing the star button. It currently has no ratings. You could be the first. So The Breakfast Club, the quick synopsis that IMDb gives is 5 high school students meet in Saturday detention and discover how they have a great deal more in common than they thought. It's a really sweet movie. Quick, simple, but really complex. And also, just a quick heads up, because it's obvious, this will have heavy spoilers for the movie. So this is your last chance. If you haven't seen it, please check it out.
Alrighty, let's give our ratings.
All right.
Gabe, I will let you go first this time.
All right, that's fair. All right, so I actually haven't thought about this beforehand, but I'm actually going to give this a solid, completely solid, 8 out of 10 stars.
Oh, wow.
Thumbs up. I highly recommend.
Okay.
I gotta say, just a quick, simple review is, I love movies that are so simple and literally take place in one setting throughout the entire movie, yet have so much complexity to it. This is a very character-heavy movie. It is very driven by the actors' performances and the writing of all the characters. It's incredible. I mean, it's a great skill to be able to make a movie like this that is so engaging, of literally 5 high school students that are just stuck in detention. It's really cool. It's really incredible, and we're going to go into depth much more, but that is just my quick glimpse at how much I really do enjoy this movie. Absolutely.
All right. I think, for me, I give this movie, let's see, I think I also give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great comedy movie. It's hilarious. I can tell you, my first reaction to this, I was laughing my butt off. There is no way to sugarcoat that, at all.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. This movie does run for about, an hour, 37 minutes?
Yeah. Rated
R, but great movie.
That surprised me at first, I'm not going to lie. Going into it, hearing so much about this movie, over the years, it's almost... How old is this? This is going to be it's coming close to being 40 years old now, which is absolutely insane. And the fact that it was rated R, after hearing so much talk about it throughout school, teachers telling us stuff, I was kind of confused at first, but then watching the movie, it's understood. It had to be rated R to really get the overall message across that it was trying to give. And again, we'll go into it, but I did find that interesting going into it. I was like, rated R. And my mom was even confused too. She didn't remember that, but she was a teenager when she saw the movie, so of course, you can perceive things differently over time and may not think it was as bad as it actually is in terms of language and what it shows, really. But I just found that interesting. It was good though.
Let's get into other people's ratings and see.
Yeah, let's see what the critics compare.
This on IMDb has a 7.8 out of 10.
Okay.
Rotten Tomatoes is 89%. And this has 66% on Metacritic.
Okay.
So this movie is about in the middle. It's not as diverse as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
But why do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, Metacritic is got to be that one outlier. 66% is really low. I'm very surprised about that, but it's Metacritic. What can you expect? IMDb, 7.8 out of 10 is actually really close to our rating. So far, two for two. I rated Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 7.6, and IMDb agreed with me with 7.5. So
you're just on. You're on the money.
I know, I'm on a roll. I guess this is gonna be my new
It's your new hobby.
My new hobby is accurately guessing IMDb scores for movies. But no,
without even looking at it.
Right. This is a movie that is definitely made for both kids and adults. For teenagers, for sure, to tell them that they have their own voice, that you don't have to be just like your parents. And it's a message for parents and adults as well, is that you can't be so hard on children, and you got to be careful what you reflect on them and what burden you're actually putting on them. And of course, it could be give or take for people. Of course, this is very popular among teenagers, and a lot of adults now said they loved the movie because they were, of course, teenagers then, and they got to learn a lot from this movie, which is really nice to see. But, I mean, I guess there was anybody who rated it low, there can be so many excuses. Maybe they found it boring that it took place in the same setting. Maybe they need an explosion every 5 seconds to actually satisfy their needs of a movie, which, I mean... okay. And then maybe there's those people who just didn't get the message. I mean, maybe they're like, man, teenagers, why are they cussing like this? Why are they talking about these foul things? That could very well be it. There could be a lot of those grumpy old critics who just didn't find it appealing. Or maybe there's just actual teenagers and adults that just weren't interested in the movie, which is fully understandable.
Grumpy old man critics.
Right. But it's another classic film where it's like, it's a really nice comedy and it lures you in that way, but then it really shows you this deep and impactful movie in the end. And it's like, wow, I got tricked, and you learned something in the end, which is really nice to see.
I actually fully agree with everything you just said, because messages can be interpreted in their own way.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's just something, with having the main group of this be teenagers, having other teenagers watch it, or having parents watch it, they can interpret it very differently because it's their own kind or their parents.
Right.
And that is something that is also touched in the movie, is teenagers' relationships with their parents.
Exactly.
So I do feel like that's also another reason why this could be so diverse.
Yeah, exactly. John Hughes is a great 80s director. Classic movies that he's made. He
can also check out other movies from him.
Yeah.
Actually, like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles.
Yes. Interesting thing about 16 Candles, which I'll get into later. But what is it? He made Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is... Oh. Did you see that movie?
Yeah, I saw that, but I didn't know that was John Hughes.
Yeah, he's absolutely killer at making teenage comedies in the 80s. He's a staple for the time.
Ferris Bueller, great movie.
Yeah, also a great movie.
Which you should also check out.
Exactly. I'm going to give some more fun facts later, but I'll give one right now.
Okay.
This was filmed at the same time as Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah, so he just like
Two
how...
movies at once. Wow.
Right.
Oh.
So if you didn't know, there's sometimes directors do that, and it's never really a good thing for directors because it's always a production nightmare. Because what's the other guy that did it? Steven Spielberg also did this once, where he made Schindler's List and Jurassic Park at the same time, and both of those were...
They're completely different movies.
Completely different movies,
gosh.
critically acclaimed, and they were both on like separate studios, like right next to each other. So he had to go back and forth directing two movies that ended up becoming both such classics and big movies in each of their genres. And it came out so well, but it was not good for him. I mean, if you saw interviews and stuff about him talking about it, it was like the worst experience of his life to have to go back and forth between those two movies because, of course, that's so much pressure. It's I can't remember exactly the reason why that happened, but he was like pressured by Universal and had to push the movie out at a certain date. It was crazy. So for John Hughes, they filmed this in a abandoned high school. I can't remember where it was actually located. In the movie, it's located near Chicago, but I don't know where it was actually located, but they actually found a real abandoned high school, and they just decorated it and filmed the movie in there. And there were some scenes in Ferris Bueller's Day Off that was filmed in the same high school. So he would actually not have to go far for whatever he had to film for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because one day he'll be on set for The Breakfast Club, and the other he would be on set for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is incredible.
That's an interesting fun fact,
right? It's really cool to think of. It's like, what a flex, man. Like, dang. Imagine being able to,
you make two movies at once.
Right.
Why? How?
And they're both such classics. I mean, you can't tell me one person who grew up in the 80s and tell you they don't know what Ferris Bueller's Day Off or they don't know what The Breakfast Club is. Like, both of those are such big movies.
It
And
was
the fact he made
actually
it at
my
the same
parents
time.
that said, you should watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You should watch The Breakfast Club. You should watch Pretty in Pink. I'm like, okay.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't have watched these movies if it weren't for my parents either. And I mean, it's gonna continue on for
Like movies like
decades.
that. That's what they tell me to watch. They're like, you should watch this.
Right.
Or like, I grew up with this. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, and it's cool. I think that's really cool. It's a very honorable thing to be able to have such a big legacy like that will pass on through generations. It's
Speaking
incredible.
of likes, what did you like about the movie?
All right, so I guess we could yeah. So let's get into this. So personally, I gotta say the big thing I liked about this movie overall is obviously the big overall story, the message. So of course throughout this movie we had the criminal, the athlete, the brain, the basket case, and the princess. And all of those are common high school stereotypes, cliches, stuff like that.
Right.
The great thing I love about this movie is it takes all of those and it completely breaks the norms. It shows that, of course, we are all teenagers. We are all the same. We're the same age. We're all the same people. Not the same people, but we're all people, and we all have things in common. I mean, it's not like we all had different. We were born all different, and we can't get along with one another. I mean, it really shows that everybody is the same inside. I mean, truly, and it was really heartwarming to see like all of them come together, break down their barriers, actually get along with one another, and talk about stuff like any normal teenager would. Like, they aren't just completely different social classes in high school, and they're completely ignoring that fact, which was nice to see. And the fact, like, the thing that hit me the most, and it's like it's when, who said it? It's when what's his name? What's the brain's name? Was it?
I just
Brian.
forgot both names.
Brian. Is when Brian was asking the group, are we going to still be friends after this? When we go back to high school on Monday, what is it going to be like? When I walk up to you in the hallway. Yeah, when I walk up to you in the hallway, are you going to talk to me? And Claire just straight up said no. I mean, it shows that that's how, like, unfortunately, that's how it works when you put a bunch of teenagers together in a high school. They all are going to form their friends, and all of them are going to have those social classes above one another, and reputation is so important. It kind of sucks to see, because it shows what great friendship all of them could have had if they really, truly stayed friends. And of course, knowing how the movie ends, I mean, maybe there's a chance they went back and they did actually become friends. But it's sad to know that so many friendships could be possible throughout the school, like any high school, but it's not, because of the fact that there are just so many different pressures and stereotypes that are put on to like different kids of what they do, what they're into, if they're too nerdy, if they're too athletic, if they are just too weird or whatever. It's sad. It's definitely sad to see. And this movie really shows it's like, even though they all became good friends, it's the hard, cold truth that it's most likely not going to ever work out, because of just all of them are so different in social class in their own school, and all their friends would just find each other weird. And that's the bell. Okay, yeah, so McKenna, what did you like about the movie?
I'm going to bring back what you said earlier, like,
Okay.
how they're all the different stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
They have all of it in each one of them. And that's what I like about that. It's not like, they're just not like, oh, I'm the brain. I'm the smart one.
Right.
This is like, you're both a basket case, a brain, a jock. You have all of it in you.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think
that's
sweet.
something I appreciate, you're not just one stereotype. You're
exactly
a complex person. You have everything in you. Like a bit of each of them in them.
Right. And the whole thing where it's like the other message of the story, which is I think the biggest one about the burdens that adults put on children, and how your parents and all of them have parent issues, of course. The prince, I can't remember what they said about the princess, but of course Bender has problems with his dad because his dad is abusive, very bad person. But it's less. The other ones are less subtle, yet are just. I mean, could be just as bad. Claire's parents are divorced, and they constantly trying to one up each other with her, like making like a tug of war out of her. And Brian, his parents put way too much pressure on him, and he feels like he has to get these amazing grades. Out of all of them, when they came out and confessed about like their troubles and stuff, he is the one who had honestly the worst thing that could possibly happen, and he was planning on doing something very bad because of just how much pressure he had on him, and it's really sad to see. And even Allison is representing parental neglect and how her parents ignore her. And what's the other one? Andrew,
the jock.
The jock. His parents want him to be the best. They are just like with the grades with Brian. They want him to absolutely be a winner, and they're growing him to just be somebody perfect, somebody that they weren't, so that they could see him, succeed for them. And it's kind of sad. All of them show that different example of neglect, and that's another cool example that this movie kind of demonstrates, which I think is nice.
How about dislikes?
Okay, so this is a weird one, but I've after looking up this movie a bit, doing a bit of research after, a lot of people agree with me. This is set back in the day, so of course, though the message still stands, all of it is still very true, though it is something special to that time period. Like, it is definitely doesn't hit as hard to us as it did to people during that time. Because now, if we were all to, first of all, if there was ever an 8-hour detention on a Saturday, I don't know if that would ever happen today.
That would be very painful.
That would suck. But if it did, everybody would just be on their phones. I mean, honestly, they wouldn't interact with one another. It would just, everyone be on their phones. There's a lot more boundaries between everybody now than ever. If they thought it was bad back then, it's even worse now. And it will only get worse, unfortunately. But the one thing that I found interesting is, back in the day, they found it, I guess this was a more symbolic thing where it's showing, this is around Allison. The whole movie, she had long hair. She had this really messy fit, like the black eyeliner, because it's trying to show that she really had to take care of herself and how she was really like an example of how she was kind of ignored by her parents. At the end, towards the end of the movie, Claire gives her a makeover, and they do her hair more, give her makeup, stuff like that. Me personally, out of all the messages that we're trying to hit, that one I can see what they were trying to do. I can see, and I guess it applied back then, where it's she could finally be her true self. She finally has somebody like a parental figure, which is kind of like Claire's taking the role of that, showing her like here's how you actually do your hair, here's how you actually do your makeup. That makes sense, and I really like that part where it's like showing her that. But on the other hand, I don't think the other message really gets across where it's like she had to change. I mean, I think it kind of like, I feel like it's showing like, she wasn't good, like she wasn't good before, and she wasn't good as herself, but now she's much better now that she got to make it work. Like, that whole part of it, that's like, I know it's weird, it's very specific, but the movie is great, so there's really not much to nitpick on. But that thing, I've seen a lot of people were upset online. It was like, oh my god, why did they give her a makeover? I thought her hair was perfect before. And I think it was, I agree. I mean, I thought it was perfectly fine how she was, but again, I get the message that they were getting across where it's like, she was neglected, and now she has friends that can actually take care of her and show her, with one another, how you actually are supposed to take care of each other, which is, that's sweet. That's really sweet. Do you know what you dislike about the movie?
I was going to say, I don't really have any dislikes. again, like we said in previous episodes, unless like how we would do this differently, I don't have any dislikes per se, but I'm aware I rated this an 8 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just I don't feel like some of the content was, let's say, appealing
Mm-hmm.
to me, and that's the only thing that I can say really. But I don't really have any dislikes. I think it's a great movie.
I mean, that's really nitpicking it. I mean, that's how good of a movie it is. I mean, we're just trying to find something bad to say about it because it's just it's a good movie. It's really good. I mean, of course, there's some stuff that just does not age well. Like the freeze frame at the end is a very 80s thing to do. Of course, nowadays, you wouldn't do a freeze frame at the end of a movie. That just would not stand nowadays. So, of course, there's things that aged over time. But overall, it's
some good,
timeless.
some bad,
Yeah.
some just okay.
Right.
I mean,
It's
like
good.
any human being, really.
Right. I agree.
Okay, now it is on to favorite line / scene.
Right.
For me, I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I actually have 2 favorite scenes, 1 favorite line. And one of them kind of goes hand in hand with one another. I'm going to say first, it's the scene where Bender, he's running around the halls making a whole entire racket, having the principal chase him around so the others could get back to the detention after they couldn't make it back. And I love his line where the principal catches him in the gym and he goes, "I think I'm trying out for a scholarship."
yeah, that was funny. That whole sequence was really. I mean,
Or
That was
where
good.
he's like singing in the hall, "I want to be an airborne."
yeah, that whole sequence is nice because it's also really sweet to see like him protecting. Like that's when you first see a spark of him actually caring for the rest of the gang by distracting everyone else because he realizes he has nothing left to lose. I mean, he has 8 more weeks of detention left. In there, and he just goes around and distracts what is it? The principal?
I think so.
Yeah, he distracts him by just running around the halls
It's like
singing
it's the
doing
dean
basketball.
of the school or the principal or something. But I
Right.
just love when he's like running around making a whole racket.
Yeah.
My other
It's a
favorite
good
scene is the iconic dance scene.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. It's funny, but it's great. It's iconic, and I think it fits in the film.
Right.
That's my favorite scene / lines. So I'll let you go.
Okay. No, that's fair. Yeah, I like that. I guess one of them will definitely, of course, be the dance scene. I guess it wouldn't be a John Hughes film without a dance scene. I mean, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the entire final act was like a musical. But no, the
and
dance
you know
scene
me,
is,
I love musicals.
yeah, no, it's really iconic. After seeing it for so many years, it was nice to finally get context to that dance scene. But it's good. It really brings everything together to see them all dancing together. I think another scene that I really like, and it's a strange one because, of course, first of all, you might think it's out of place or you might think it's a little foul. But the scene where they are all, I guess to say this lightly without actually saying it, the scene where they're on another planet and they are, how do I say it? They're doing very teenager things.
Okay.
You know what
I
mean?
think I know what you mean now.
It's a nice scene, I think, because it really shows them all being teenagers. Because it's again that message of breaking the boundaries,
On another planet.
doing what teenagers do.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And on another planet, but I think I like that scene. I thought it was pretty sweet to see for sure. But
Alright.
one thing I do want to mention is I guess you will notice throughout the podcast, I don't know why, but I do not find myself being able to remember lines. Like lines, there's so many classic lines in movies, right?
I know.
And you pulled out that one, and I didn't remember it until you said that.
Because that scene was so memorable for me. Sometimes
Right.
I myself do have to look up, like, what are some iconic lines in this movie? And then I remember it. Yeah, sure.
Right.
But that scene was so just hilarious and impactful to me that I
Exactly.
remember it. It's in my brain.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people who agree and a lot that disagree, because I've seen so many people where it's like they say they quote this line all the time. I'm like, I can't even remember like when that line was said. I don't know why. I remember scenes and more of like the actual story more than individual lines. I have so many favorite shows and stuff, and I watch them so many times over. The Office, A Series of Unfortunate Events, I've seen so many times over now. House MD, but I've never actually been able to say a line from any of those shows just off the top of my head. I don't know why. It just isn't something that really is something I can remember. Which, I mean, I know it's random, but I guess same for this movie. I had to say a scene because I just can't remember a line for the life of me. I don't know why. But that's just a fun fact, because I see so many people who do that. I'm sure there's a lot of you watching right now who's like, oh, I say this line all the time. I'm like, good for you. I can't remember it. I don't know why.
So now on to fun facts and trivia. We're kind of going to do this in like one whole segment.
Yeah.
I know we normally like do this separately.
But it's fine. Whatever goes naturally.
So I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
The scene where they all sit in a circle on the floor in the library and tell stories about why they were in detention.
Right.
Was this scripted, yes or no?
Was it scripted? That's interesting. If a lot of that was like improv, I would be very impressed.
What's your answer, yes or no?
I mean, based off the fact you're asking me, if I were originally saying, I would be like, oh yeah, that's scripted, absolutely, because of how much thought goes into that whole scene. But is it?
No.
Wow, that is not scripted. Well, tell me about that.
The writer and the director told them all to just ad-lib.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What?
No
way.
That was not scripted.
It's such an iconic scene.
The fun fact is, this entire script for this movie was written in 2 days.
Wow. That's impressive. Holy cow. Wish I could write an entire movie script in 2 days.
Don't we all?
Yeah, don't we all?
But
no, that's actually really
making
impressive.
a movie script to me is something that takes meaning, that takes time.
So much thought goes into that. Yeah.
It's a whole thought process, like the plot twist, the character progression.
Right. And like tying everything together.
They did that in 2 days.
That's so impressive. That's actually really impressive. And the fact, I find it interesting that the fact that, what's his name? John Hughes, he was born in the 50s? He was definitely not a teenager at this time, obviously. So his high school experience was different than teenagers at this time was. So I'm always thinking, like, how did he get this so right? I mean, how do he appeal to all these high schoolers? And if you look into it, his son went to high school at the time this movie was made. So he got a lot of information from the high school, his high school son. Isn't that
Intel
crazy?
from the family.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here's my fun fact. I mean, I have a couple, but here's one of them.
Okay.
This is on the fact of that matter. Did you know that for this movie, John Hughes had the cast who were in their 20s. Fun fact and a fun fact. Brian was 16 at this time this was filmed. He was the youngest. All the other cast members were in their 20s. What's his name? I keep forgetting their name. Bender was
Judd
the oldest.
Nelson.
Yeah, Bender was the oldest out of the group. He was 24 at the time they filmed it. And Brian was the youngest. He was 16. The rest were from 20 to 24. But they had all of them, even though Brian already knew, but all the rest of the cast members go for a day not for a day. They went to like a high school for a little while to actually get into the character and actually learn more about the culture of high schoolers, which is why I guess it felt so much more natural. And it's funny because they did report that Judd Nelson, who played Bender, was so good at it. He found he got a whole friend group while he was in high school that genuinely thought he was a teenager. And then he revealed it, and it's like, I'm 24. And I found that so interesting that they actually did that.
Another thing off of that, actually, is that whenever they stopped camera, another thing on Judd Nelson, he would bully Molly Ringwald.
I heard that too.
He stays in character.
He's such a method actor.
But then Brian, I'm not sure who plays him. Brian.
Yeah.
He was defending Nelson.
Really?
He was saying, he was saying like this is method acting.
It's method acting.
This is he's
Wow.
fine. Like he's just getting into character.
We could do a whole episode on the boundaries of method acting. I'm not gonna lie.
Something we do know very well.
Iffy about it. Yeah. I don't know. We could go in a whole rant about it, but I mean that's. I guess in this context. I mean, it would have been best if he didn't pick on Ringwald,
Right.
but if she didn't mind, I mean, that's incredible method acting right there.
Who knows? Was she bothered by it?
Right. It makes me wonder, though, if, like, how in the world do you not notice, like, somebody in their 20s going to your high school? And
like, I feel like that would be noticeable.
First of all...
Unless they have a baby face.
Right. Like, first of all, I would be confused on why there's suddenly a new person in the school. And then second of all, I feel like I would notice. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't know. Don't you think you would notice a 20-something-year-old being a high schooler?
Right, because, it is a little suspicious.
It is.
I will say.
Yeah.
But if you can tell they're 20 or not, that really depends. If they have a baby face or not, if they actually look like a teenager. But that's also a very small and slight possibility.
Yeah.
Because nowadays in high school, like, we don't get many new people.
Right. Yeah.
Which would also make that a little weird. If
I guess
someone
where
just
we
were
live,
to randomly come into.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it would be weird to have somebody sudden. There was a woman in recent events. There was a woman who was recently, I don't know if she was arrested or charged and she filmed this whole thing on TikTok where she acted like a high schooler in her daughter's high school for like a couple days, and she got caught by the teacher, which is like, I mean, that's obviously what I think would happen, right? I mean, there's this adult in a school with a bunch of children. I mean, I think that would be noticeable, but I guess not. I mean, I don't know, the 80s, there's a whole nother debate, which there's so many debates, but there's a whole nother debate where if you know this YouTuber named Vsauce, he talks about some really interesting scientific things. There's this whole concept that back in the day, people used to look older, which I found really interesting. He noticed, and it is a true thing, that high schoolers or teenagers at the time, like way back then, from in the 1900s, they used to have more like adult faces, if you may notice. Like if you're watching old media, like they look old for a high schooler. And I mean, it was a thing. It was very true. These people, now that you look at it, like Bender, I could notice he didn't really look like a high schooler in this movie.
No.
He's noticeably old. I guess the rest did look like high schoolers, so they did a great job. But Bender, he was 24 at the time, and you could notice that. But I guess back then, I mean, honestly, that whole debate about whether people used to look older, I guess it applied because he played it off really well.
With Bender's character, I think it would make sense. I feel like he's the type to get held back so many years.
That's true, yeah. I guess
that he'd be an adult by the
there.
time he's in high school. Like,
right.
By the time he finishes, he graduate, he'll probably be like 30.
Right.
But, I mean...
I agree. Yeah.
With the amount of trouble he gets in, I think that makes sense.
Right. So, I'm actually going to segue this next one because I have a bunch of behind-the-scenes info that I'm going to talk about before we end the episode. So I'm going to start with one thing, and it's going to be a trivia question. We're mixing all these segments together, huh?
We're sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're sorry. So here's the question, and this is just kind of like the scripted one, so it's probably the answer is pretty easy since I'm asking it. But
all right.
Was The Breakfast Club the original title?
Oh, I want to say yes. Yes, it was.
It wasn't. The Breakfast Club had another title beforehand, which was called The Lunch Bunch. Isn't that interesting? So I heard this...
Just going through all the meals.
Yeah.
The dinner crew.
Right.
Lunch Bunch, Breakfast Club.
I know.
Just combine them at this point.
I know. Do an all-in-one movie.
Brunch.
The brunch. The Brunch Bunch. Oh, man.
That would be a tongue twister.
That would be a tongue twister. Imagine
Brunch
being like,
bunch.
yeah, all right, today's episode, The Lunch Bunch. I mean, oh my God. Anyway, no. Yeah, so it was originally going to be called The Lunch Bunch, and that was going to be the movie's title, like set in stone. But what I told you earlier, John Hughes' son is in high school, And he told him that it was a common thing to say for people who had early morning detentions, they would be called the Breakfast Club. And so John Hughes got that piece of information from his son and was like, well, that fits much more better than the Lunch Bunch. So the rest is history, and the Breakfast
So
Club
his
was
son
born.
named the movie then.
So his son made. Give big props to John Hughes' son because he really helped out in the production of this movie. I mean, he was his inside info into the life of a high schooler, which is pretty nice to see.
Man. He just wrote the entire movie.
I know, right? Fun fact: John Hughes' son wrote the whole script. No, it's
I mean,
it's
I
sweet
can
to
see
see.
that. It could happen.
Right.
But anyway.
So okay, I guess before I go into the big thing, behind the scenes info about this movie, there is one more fun fact, and it's actually something we talked about last episode.
Oh.
Did you catch John Hughes in this movie? Because guess
Oh my
what?
God.
He was.
Wait, what?
So John Hughes is the director of the movie, as we've obviously mentioned a bunch. He's also the writer.
We've also mentioned cameos in the last episode.
And the last episode, yeah. If you didn't see the last episode, we talked about cameos in movies. And Quentin Tarantino appeared in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like he does with many of his films.
John Hughes.
I literally did not know this until I was looking at the IMDb cast, because he is under the cast in IMDb. He was at I don't know if it's the beginning or end of the movie. I'm trying to see here. It's the end of the movie.
Is he one of the dads?
He is the dad of Brian. So at the beginning of the movie, Brian is being dropped off by his mom, right, and his sister.
Right.
Right. At the end of the movie, though, Brian is going into like a red car, and it's in that car is his dad. And guess who plays his dad? John Hughes.
That
if
is
you look up a
insane.
picture, if you look up a picture of
Oh.
Brian's dad in the Breakfast Club,
Oh my
right
God.
there, you see, that's John Hughes. I mean, I didn't notice that until right now, but it's so cool. It adds to the feel of like, wow, I love directors appearing in their own movies. It's such a cool cameo.
Oh my God, that is just insane.
It's pretty cool. I like that a lot.
I did not know that.
Right.
I'm aware like many directors do that, but I didn't know John Hughes was in the Breakfast Club.
I know. I didn't notice him at first. I didn't know what John Hughes looked like, again, until I researched for this. And then I see it, I'm like, wow, that is him. I mean, you couldn't even catch it. It's really
Like
cool.
I can catch it whenever it's like Quentin Tarantino or a director I know
Right.
what he looks like, but John
Yeah.
Hughes, no.
John Hughes, I'm not fully familiar with, right? And so I'm surprised to see that. That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Okay, so
Because like if as a director I know, I specifically like I look for them in the movie if I
Right.
know that they do that.
exactly, yeah.
It's like where are you at? It's like it's a
It's a little
now.
Where's Waldo? Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Where's Quentin?
Right. Where's Quentin? No. Okay. So the last segment, behind the scenes, there is actually a really crazy story behind this movie. I mean, not crazy, but it's a really interesting story. So
Plot
first
twist:
of all,
his son wrote the script.
so this is a very deep movie.
As we all know.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into a bit of a tangent here. Not tangent, but I'm gonna go into a lot of detail here. So bear with me. But this movie is very deep and has a lot of big messages. Apparently, when this was originally proposed, when John Hughes had the script in his hand, he originally proposed the idea to Universal. They didn't like it.
Oh.
They said that they weren't a fan of how emotional and how much they talked about the depressing stories about each of these teenagers. Though it was a comedy 90% of the movie, Universal executives was not appreciative of that 10%. And they said they wanted a more goofy and fun and raunchy teen flick like it was commonly at the time. If you look up a bunch of teenage movies at the time, it was very different than The Breakfast Club. It made teenagers look absolutely like animals. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean,
And that's what Universal wanted. I mean, isn't that crazy? So here's what he did. He wanted more like Universal wanted more like maybe a love story, maybe a lot of goofball flick. So what he did is he instead was put onto the role of making a movie called 16 Candles. He made 16 Candles in response to Universal denying The Breakfast Club.
I've seen
Isn't that
16
interesting?
Candles. I never knew that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So he made 16 Candles, which is like, okay, fine. If you want this type of movie, here you go, Universal. But afterwards, Universal was still going to make The Breakfast Club, and they didn't want him to direct the movie. But after some time, obviously, the rest is history. John Hughes ended up directing The Breakfast Club, and it's crazy.
What can you do?
Yeah, and I'm glad they did. I don't understand what the thing is with the like studios not wanting emotional work. Like, I mean, it's
like, no,
it's
this is
good.
horrible. I'm not going to watch this. I'm not going
Right.
to produce this.
I'm not
going to. Yeah.
No, I don't want good character development. Ugh, what is that? No. Yeah, no. It's
Absolutely not. Because that's a horrible thing.
right. Yeah. And we see, of course, times are changing. A24 is a big studio that is obviously one to do a lot of movies like that now. But back in the day, that was a big no-no for teenage movies, and I'm very glad they let.
How dare you
this
develop
happen.
characters so well?
I know. Why? How dare you actually write something meaningful?
Oh.
But that's wild. The other thing is the casting. There was a huge amount of casting changes, and the rabbit hole gets deep. Of what I can remember, well, first of all, of course, since 16 Candles was made after that story, before The Breakfast Club, the two people who are in 16 Candles is Claire and Brian. Both of those people are the same people from the
Right.
16 Candles.
Yeah,
Right.
and I noticed that. Because when
Right.
I was watching the movie with my mom, I'm like, is this the nerdy kid that's in 16 Candles? She's like, yeah.
Yeah,
He always
yeah.
plays the nerdy kid.
So those are the same. Those are the same two people. And so John Hughes, of course, knew them already, and he already agreed to have them on for The Breakfast Club. Before anyone else was casted, those were the first two people to be casted. Before the principal, before the janitor, all of them. And it's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun to pretty cool to see that they were the first. But Claire was originally supposed to play the basket case. She was originally supposed to play Allison, and Claire actually is the one who convinced John Hughes that she wants to play the princess because she wanted to give a more powerful and meaningful, kind of take on that kind of character. And I'm glad she did. She did a great job, especially during that scene where they're all sitting around. That was a really touching moment, and she played that character very well. But that's interesting that she was originally supposed to play that. So she was put on as Claire, and Allison was casted as somebody else. And the other two people who were supposed to play something else, Andrew, who plays the jock, was supposed to play Bender. So he was originally put on as... No, not originally put on. He originally auditioned for the role of Bender. But he was casted for the role of the jock, which is, again, really interesting to see. And I'm glad John Hughes had a vision because he fits so much better as a jock. It's really... I could see it for sure. And then the other thing about Bender, guess who was supposed to play him? Who was thought to play him? I guess there was nothing official, but originally it was thought that Nicolas Cage was to play Bender.
Nicolas Cage.
Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine in some alternate timeline Nicolas Cage playing Bender? I mean, he's...
Parallel universe now.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. He's known for playing some weird roles, but recently he has shown that he is actually a really good actor. He's been in some really good movies recently. So I could have seen it. Honestly, I could have seen it.
Any actor has their awkward roles that they have to get past to really make it.
To show that they are a true good actor. Yeah, but I found that interesting. It's so cool to see. Yeah, no, all of these people, they never really went on to be the big stars. So it's cool to see, like, I always am a fan of movies that don't just put big actors in it for no reason. Oppenheimer was a great example of putting big actors in it, but actually for a reason. That was an incredible cast. But there are some movies where it's like, do we really need this many stars? Another good example is Knives Out. They had a lot of famous actors, and they all did really well. They played their roles perfectly.
I love Knives Out.
Yeah. But most movies, that's not the case. I mean, I can't name an example, but most movies, like, they throw all these stars in. It's like, okay, come on. I mean, they don't fit.
Some movies that we're talking about here, I wish we haven't seen so we could do it on this podcast.
I know. Yeah, no, but that's how it is.
Just check out those movies
Just
because
check them
they
all
are
out.
all masterpieces.
Right.
I mean,
watch more movies, people. They
God.
teach you something in life.
Valuable things movies are. Watch them. Thank you so much for tuning in. on us talking about The Breakfast Club. Be sure to check the movie out on Max, Hulu, Apple TV, Vudu, Amazon Prime, Google Play, or YouTube TV. And if you're crazy enough to have not watched it and watch this video, please do.
Exactly.
Please do.
Please check out the movie.
You are insane if you watched through this whole thing with spoilers and didn't watch the movie.
Exactly. Yeah, this is not your way of watching a movie. Don't say you've seen The Breakfast Club now. Actually watch it, please. And also be sure to subscribe to Avon Link Productions for more episodes of this very podcast and more episodes of our weekly news show, Anchor News Now, for everything Avon Link. Also be sure to rate and follow us on Spotify, where you can find the same podcast, Weekly Cinema. But tune in next week as we will talk about Wonka, the brand new one with Timothée Chalamet, released in 2023. Neither of us have seen it.
Chalamet?
Whatever his last name is. Be sure to tune in next week as we will watch it and we're going to talk about it. But until then, that's all.
See you next time.
Goodbye.
You said the name wrong.
Ah.